Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and with the advent of Festival of the Lost, we have some general ideas how Bungie is going to be handling the economy of Eververse. I know this is outside of my usual video, but it's one of those times where I feel it important to address issues we may not always think about, especially considering that not everyone that plays this game is a streamer or full-time YouTuber. Please note, I'm not in either of those categories, and even if I were a full-time YouTuber, I would still wonder where most of my time was going on this grind. Anyway, I'm ahead of myself. To be clear, I will be making a separate video about my feelings on Festival of the Lost as a whole, but wanted to make this its own topic as I feel it really deserves it. And then we'll be back to normal because I've got plenty of things that I gotta start talking about otherwise, as you all know. In case you weren't playing Destiny 2 back when it first started, back in the day we used to call it Festival of the Lost Dollar, and in some ways, I can't say that's changed. Both Dawning and Festival of the Lost have both suffered from this conundrum, and I'm not quite sure how or where that balance is going to be found. I want to support Bungie and make sure the game keeps going, and with the change to mostly free-to-play, I understand that this model is going to be more common for them. But we do still spend for the expansions, we do still spend for access to events, and we do still pay for the premium battle pass. None of this is bad, and I certainly have gotten my money's worth out of it all. I want to get that out there now. This is also saying that I myself have yet to get 100 on the battle pass rating, and I know that many that have plunked less time than myself into the game have. But oh well. The real meat and potatoes of today's discussion comes down to two words: Bright Dust. Now, I'm one of the goofballs that had about 28,000 going into Shadowkeep, and my supply is doing alright. I say alright, between the amount that I have spent is much higher than what I've been taking in, which is counter to how my gains used to be under the old systems. I get that now we're seeing more direct purchases with silver, and this is for past items that we had access to in the festival and other events, but I'm seeing less ways to earn Bright Dust than before, all the same, since the items from Eververse no longer grant it, and we have almost zero Eververse engrams handed to us anymore, minus the few in the Battle Pass. By the by, had about 28,000, down to around just over 10,000 at this point. Bright Dust seems to be that one economy that Bungie really doesn't want to hand out at this point. The issue seems to be how you earn Bright Dust within Shadowkeep, and there are some limitations in how you earn it. Even then, it's just incredibly inconvenient and just really not a great system. 3 vendors give you quests for Bright Dust, and the grindy supply is pretty amazing considering a few things. You've got Zavala for strike bounties, Shax for Crucible, I mean he is the Crucible after all, and good old Drifty Boy who looks at me funny and calls me Snitch every once in a while. I don't know, he's a wackadoo. Anyway, in all seriousness, you can grab 5 bounties at a time from these guys for 3,000 Glimmer apiece. After 5 are in your logs, you have to complete 1 at least to receive another 1. You also can't do these outside of their typical activities, so you have to do Crucible, you have to do Gambit, or you have to do Strikes in order to actually access and get these quests done. Well, hey, that's okay. I mean, when you go to turn one of these quests in, you get 10 Bright Dust. I mean, that's totally okay. Wait, what? Yeah, 10 Bright Dust per quest, per 3,000 Glimmer. Now, Glimmer isn't totally tough to get a hold of. In fact, I tend to swim in it. But there are times when it starts to drain, especially with the new mod system and so on. And if you go to farm for Bright Dust, then it starts to drain pretty quickly. 3,000 per quest. I don't know any of the activities listed that reward that amount. Strikes get close, but with the random nature of strikes, you don't always complete a quest per activity. And that's an issue alone for the grind itself. And it is quite the grind. This doesn't even talk about the fact that you have to go back to the tower every single time you want to refill these quests, which means you'll have to derail your Strike, Crucible, or Gambit groove even further with another loading screen. Not to mention the longest loading screen I tend to find on PC. I think it has something to do with my router and matchmaking, but anyway. So, let's go over this math real fast and get some numbers out there for baseline. Keep in mind that I do understand weeklies do supply 1,200 Bright Dust in total from completing the 6 quests on one character, at least from Shax, Drifter, and Zavala, You receive 200 dust per weekly quest, and you can do that per character. 18 quests in total, 3,200 bright dust. One quest rewards 10 bright dust. One quest is 3,000 glimmer. Our total glimmer that we can hold at one time is 250,000. With a full glimmer cap, you can get 830 bright dust. Well, what does that buy you? I mean, you can get the shaders without an issue, but otherwise you'll be able to get a transmat effect, and that's about it. They're valued at 450 bright dust for the transmat effects, and I don't know, arguably that can even be seen as a little high. All of the exotic stuff that we're talking about, which, let's face it, is the stuff that they usually put behind the bright dust anyway. Ships are valued at 2,000 dust, sparrows 2,500, ghost shells 2,850, ghost projections 1,500, masks from the festival event 1,200, and emotes 3,250. And then there's the armor. Let's say you didn't play last year. I could bring up my hunter for that at the least to show this off, which is another point altogether that I'll get to. For 6,000 bright dust, you can get the skeleton armor or last year's festival armor. This translates to 600 quests from Shaxx, Zavala, or Drifter, or any combination therein, and a total of 1.8 million glimmer. Not only is that a lot of time performing these quests, but that's a lot of time getting that glimmer. Not to mention a lot of time going back and forth to the vendors in order to reacquire these quests. Yes, I'm going to keep coming back to that because it's annoying as hell. Not to mention, that's for one character. If you want to get these armor sets for all three of your characters, if you have all three classes, then that's triple this rate. And if you put that much time into Destiny, then I tip my hat to you, then quickly tell you to please go outside once in a while because no, that's ridiculous. You cannot tell me that isn't ridiculous. Even then, the one I more so have issue with is Bungie at this point. How you spend your time is your business. I'm only half kidding about the comment. You're the one being somewhat forced into grinding the amount for all of these items if you don't want to spend any cash. And we will get there. 5.4 million glimmer, 18,000 bright dust, alleviated by whatever luck you can have getting dust from 20 Eververse engrams that you get through the battle pass. Even if that's 250 dust per engram, that's still not enough for one of the armor sets from one of the seasonal events. There's also a nice, generous 200 bright dust in the battle pass, which, please, we don't want to break the bank or anything, Bungie. And to reiterate, we'll get to the total math on the weeklies as well, but let's figure if you want more than just the armor, okay? Okay. But let's talk about the silver acquisition for these items for a moment before we get to the big picture. We'll focus on the armor sets like we have been. For 1,500 silver, you can get one of the armor sets for one class. Now, there are technically 2 per class for any new players, so this makes it 3,000 silver per character. So let's break that down for a second here, even though I think you're all starting to see the level of crazy that this tends to be. These are your silver prices. In order for a new player to get all 6 sets of armor, the lowest they could spend is $80. Of course, you keep these costumes for as long as Destiny 2 is still a thing, which is still questionable on what they're doing as time goes by, and no one can seriously predict that anyway because Bungie is a business and they do their own thing, so, don't come here telling me that Destiny 2 is going to be around forever. We all know better at this point. This doesn't even talk about ghost shells and ships and sparrows, and yeah, this is getting tiring already. One strike is roughly about 5 to 8 minutes in length. One Gambit match is about 10 minutes or a bit more depending. Crucible matches can all depend on how you're doing with how the other team's doing, but let's just say for sake of argument, 7 minutes for a match as well. Now assume that each of those matches you get done 2 bounties. You know what? We'll do 3. I'll be generous. For strikes alone, sticking to this general math at about 8 minutes per strike length, not only would you need 200 strikes to get the armor for 3 bounties complete at a time, but you'll spend about 1,600 minutes playtime in strikes and only strikes. This doesn't count going back to Zavala or when you run out of glimmer and have to get some more. That's almost 27 hours of straight strike time. Did I mention that's in order to earn 6,000 bright dust, which is one set of armor? Okay, so multiply that by 6 for the whole of the armor sets for new players. 160 hours, 1,200 strikes, 3,600 quests, 10.8 million glimmer. The grind is absolutely insane. Straight and absolutely insane. So, of course, for someone earning $10 an hour after taxes are taken out, that can equate the same grind to those 8 hours at work, and bam, you got it all. Look at that, you got your life back because of that item that you wanted and paid for. That's $80 plus tax, by the way. Let's do some summations. This image has a fair majority of the items on the Eververse list, if not all of them. Everything on this list costs a total of 27,200 bright dust. That's not including all armor sets for all characters, by the way. And no, this isn't everything. This is far from the full list, and I know it because of ghost projections and everything else that they add into this game. And no, I don't expect everyone to buy everything on the list. But you know there's going to be someone that wants it all and does get it all. But I'm still gonna point this out. Sticking to our math from before, 27,200 dust translates to 2,720 quests, which is 8.2 million glimmer, 907 strikes, which is 7,256 minutes, which is 120 hours of straight play through just strikes if all goes well. I cannot fathom this grind. And that's just strikes. Like Traveler, you can vary up the gameplay, but if you just do these 3 things, you will lose your mind. I mean, I gotta split things up once in a while. I gotta shoot things for Ada now and again in a forge, or go smack things around in the Dreaming City, or go get some big XP from other sources in the system, never mind my want to have some more planetary materials and earn up more stuff and my other bounties that I have nothing to do with these activities at all, or my pinnacle gear, or my... Do you see what I mean? If you play just those 3 activities, if you don't even participate in the event that you might have paid for from the expansion you bought, like Shadowkeep, Vex Offensive for instance, then maybe you can get all of this after you sell your family home, quit your job, give up the kids and everything else, because 120 hours is over 5 days of straight playtime. I played some MMOs in my time, and I put a ton of time into them, but I also varied everything that I wanted to do. I had the displeasure of playing on Earth and Ring back in World of Warcraft on Alliance side and going against account share Jackhole, Longarms, McHuntard. YouTube, your lack of me being able to curse right now is killing me. Point is, I did my math with a lot of this type of grind. It gets you nothing. That this kind still exists and that the mindset does exist for those of us that may want to even have some of the items in the Eververse without spending money is just insane. And the fact that they're trying to push us into all of it is just as equally insane. But it doesn't really stop there, does it? As soon as Festival of the Lost is over with, we'll have the Dawning start up in about 3 weeks or so. I'm guessing. Maybe a month. Probably about 4 weeks, about 5 weeks from now. But take this grind that we just went over and shove it into that 4 to 5 week period time. Good friggin' luck. So, let's get some maximum numbers out there for release of Shadowkeep up until about now. Best as I can get them anyway within my estimations. Let's say you have all 3 characters and you are doing your weekly thing, getting all the bright dust you can from just the weeklies. Shadowkeep released on October 1st. That's about 6 weeks from time of recording here. This supplies you with 21,600 bright dust. Alright, so not too bad, realistically. Minus the whole 12,000 bright dust per character potentially for the 2 sets of armor that Eververse will sell to you. This still comes up way short for that, not to mention for the sparrows, ships, and so on. The amount of bright dust needed for everything, assuming you didn't play last year, is about 55,400 bright dust, and that's still a low-balled estimate. At least for all of the items I can see that we should be getting throughout the last week of the event as well. But again, this is a low-balled estimate. This means you need an additional 33,800 bright dust to be earned from quests had previously obtained from the 20 Eververse boxes, or otherwise had with you when you migrated over from Destiny 2 before it went free to play. And soon, those boxes from Eververse are going to be impossible to obtain without spending money on silver. If they're not already impossible for you to obtain, because getting to 100 is actually kind of easy, if I'm at all honest, if you have at least 100 hours to put into it, I think. That difference? 3,380 quests, 10.1 million glimmer, 9,013 minutes, which is about 150 hours. 7 days of in-game play dedicated to strikes. The math that I'm going by is still strikes. If you vary it at all, you're off of the possibly most efficient means to get a hold of this stuff. Last bit of math here. Let's say you have 21,600 bright dust going into the event and a bit further off into it. How much would you need to counteract this missing dust and pay for silver? Ultimately, this is the question. 16,000 dust is put to 2 armor sets. This leaves 4 more, potentially. We have 5,600 dust left over. That gives you enough for a sparrow and a ghost shell if we go by some of the high-rolling items. Again, not legendary items at all. These are all just exotics. The ones that they realistically put a lot of work and time into. Okay, so we need a nice round 10,000 silver to get almost everything else, at least from this year, plus the armor sets from last. There are still ghost shells and such that I'm missing here. Grand total, to meet that difference, $100, which is 2 of the 50 packs. This gives you 12,000 silver, so you can still factor in some of the items I haven't really added into my calculations at all. Now figure we have the Dawning coming up in about 5 weeks. By doing the rest of your weekly bounties, at least, you'll have 18,000 bright dust. Being that we see how far that's going to go into the future of Eververse, we can tell that's pretty low. I can understand helping Bungie out with some cash every now and again. They're a solo developer, publisher, etc., everything at this point. They're doing a pretty good job so far with the game and keeping me rather enticed and interested. They're doing their job. I hope that what I do give them goes towards furthering the title and fund whatever else they're thinking of doing, extra quests and remapping in weapons and giving us some new stuff, etc. But $100 or more every time a new event drops for the new players. That's a serious turnoff. That's not great. My having played over the last few years of D2 has at least afforded me some of those items already in the game, but when I see a load of new items added that are exclusive to Eververse, this hurts my soul. You can also make the argument that you can just wait until next year and pick them up then with bright dust and keep saving, but if it's anything like what they did this year, they made every past item buyable through silver. There is no means to acquire it realistically through bright dust. I think there were a couple items intermixed throughout the event, but they were sparse. Most of it was put behind silver, so this entire thinking goes out the window. Part of it is greed on my end, and greed on Bungie's. I want all of the items possible, but I also understand the aspect of business. But Forsaken is still $25 on Steam. Shadowkeep and the annual pass for all of the content upcoming is $60. That's $85 for the current content set that exists for the title. I understand live services do ask for a lot of capital to upkeep, but is it to the tune of charging your loyal customers and players around $285 within the first 3 months of the game going free to play? Not so sure. I'm really not. So, how can we fix some of this? Obviously, upping the count of the bright dust given to us from bounties is a big deal, or alternatively, just lowering the cost of the items within Eververse can also help alleviate almost all of this. I'll leave the balance to those that think more on this, as again, I think the business side of things still needs to be honored and considered. But even at 20 bright dust per quest completed, these 5 quests get you 100 dust instead of 50. Bungie has the numbers. They can see how many of them are done to balance this number properly and still earn some cash. Or they should be able to, right? At the least, taking out the load to the tower and having to reacquire these quests from the vendors they're in is something that you can basically help to speed this process up. Get it out of there. The whole point of making changes that you had from D1 to D2 was about cutting out the time for me to get back to punching Cabal in the face. Keep thinking about that as time goes on. Make that quality of life a little bit better. Accepting quests in orbit just got another reason to happen, and happen right now. Anyway, this went way longer than I intended, and I'm sorry for that in a way. I wanted to get all of the math out there that I could, even overblow the math a bit, and make it very apparent how much time is wasted on this crap, potentially. The cash to in-game alteration doesn't add up even close. What do you think? Am I asking for too much? Do you think there needs to be some balance from Bungie? Do they need to reassess the whole system again? Because I'm getting flashbacks to Destiny 2 vanilla here. Do you think it's okay to ask for cash at this level for all the items involved? Do they need to add in items for dust from last year and the current year? So many questions on this crap. I hate cash shops. Much as Destiny doesn't focus on Eververse as much as it used to, it's always apparent that the events are there for the sake of Eververse and lightly for extra game modes. But I'll get to that next time with my thoughts on Festival of the Lost. To those of you that are curious what kind of stuff I do otherwise, I usually do lore content, but occasionally I've got to do my commentary thing. I feel that it's right and beneficial for the community to overall have some extra voices, and as you guys have given me a platform, which I'm thankful for, I want to make sure that I use it as best as I can. Anyway, until next time, no matter when or where you are, I'll see you next space time. Take care.